And even for American citizens, if they go down this dark path, right, you're going to be able to. Bitcoin gives you the power to not only vote with your wallet but also your feet, right? I've heard amazing stories of Venezuelans escaping Venezuela, fleeing to Spain, for example, and the only thing that they were able to take with them was their Bitcoin, because they were able to take their seed with them. So I agree. I think judicial arbitrage is going to play a major role, but so perhaps the official three-letter agencies, are somewhat confined, but what the US has been using really since early 50s, late 40s has been using they've been using the guise of these international organizations, like for example the United Nations, the World Bank, the IMF. And what was really striking to me was the fact that the IMF, when they bailed out Argentina, once again, one of the stipulations was you must stop, that you must de-incentivize the adoption of Bitcoin within your country in order to receive that bailout. So perhaps there isn't direct influence with the United States, but look, where's the IMF headquartered? Washington D.C. That's not
Yes,
a
but once again,
coincidence, right?
you got to think about this very, very carefully. And it's easy to go down the route of believing that the American government is omnipotent, and it absolutely is not. Even in the context of the United Nations, which you mentioned, the Security Council doesn't always go the way that the American government wants it to go. So the it's not an impenetrable fortress where only what America wants is the result. And you must remember also that Bitcoin isn't about these big institutions, whether it's the UN or the OFAC or anything else like that. It's about individuals using Bitcoin. And we need to look at software piracy as an analog to how Bitcoin can spread throughout the economy. Software piracy, they've been trying to stop it for over 20 years, and they've absolutely failed to do it. And there are no huge organizations doing the software piracy distribution. It's all done peer to peer by individuals, and it's never stopped. And it's a huge, absolutely huge economy, if you want to give it a word like that, globally. So it's very important to think about what it is exactly we're dealing with, which is a computer network that anybody can join, literally anybody can join, and which is not restricted geographically. So people can beat their chests all they like. They can't stop piracy. They can't stop Bitcoin. And in the end, they will have the only choice they'll have is to come along with something that's better than Bitcoin. And in the case of software piracy, no software piracy, movie piracy, it's the Apple ecosystem where it's very, very inexpensive to buy a song on iTunes now because they priced it like a 99 cents or whatever it is. And so in an economy like that, it makes much more sense to just pay 99 cents to get this music file rather than to hunt all over and get torrents of things like that. It's just, it's a hassle. But when music was first digitized, the music companies tried to charge the same money that they were charging for CDs and albums, but only digitally. It was only much later that Apple cracked the code, as it were, and realized that you have to charge only pennies for a track in order to get everybody to download and not pirate music. And that's when the floodgates open, and that's how iTunes became such a huge phenomenon, and Spotify and all those other things. Of course, the artists have been complaining that they're not getting enough money, but in when the refrigerator placed the Iceman lost, and now these recording artists are quote unquote losing, even though they're gaining super distribution. So this is the way you need to think about Bitcoin, and to not put it in not think only about the negative things that can happen, but to think about the history of software, the history of software distribution, and how it can be done peer to peer without a company and reach the entire world. Only now it's not talking about wares or movies, we're talking about money, synthetic money, that is. And so the same forces that spread wares all over the world every day, like right now, there's the World Cups on. There are many, many pirated streams all over the internet. They're very, very easy to find. So the same thing's going to happen with Bitcoin, and it can't be stopped. That's the way to think about it. And we should be thinking about what tools and services we need to build and deploy to make this magic happen. And for example, on Ubuntu, there's a tool called Transmission, which people use for torrenting. That's installed with every copy of Ubuntu, and every copy of Ubuntu should come with a Bitcoin wallet. That's the kind of thing we need to be thinking about and talking about, not about these threats from the minority government of the world that can't actually stop not only the software piracy, but Bitcoin. They can't stop it. They can make a lot of noise, write bills like the Loomis Gilliard bill, and try to frighten everybody, but it's not going to work. It didn't work to stop software piracy. It's not going to work to stop Bitcoin because Bitcoin is too good to be stopped. Once everybody gets a taste of it, they'll never go back to fiat tools ever again. And this is happening. And you can see this happening in places like Lebanon, where Bitcoin is starting to grow exponentially because their system is collapsing there. So it's a good idea to keep your eye on the facts of this problem, which is how to get Bitcoin into the hands of people. And the American government, once again, to repeat myself, is not omnipotent. It's not omniscient either, and they cannot win against everybody on Earth.
Yeah. No, and I agree. And so and I agree that the analogy, this is a great analogy, the analogy about software privacy, was LimeWire. They tried everything and this thing wouldn't go away. There was no more metaphorical head to chop off, and I think that's the case with Bitcoin. However, Beautyon, you are a big advocate, and we've been, based on your advice, of course, we've been, not every episode, but we've been trying to get into the habitual or habit into every time we preach self custody. Opti's been pretty good at it, at also recommending which wallets to download. A lot of these wallets are mobile wallets, and we know for a fact that the vast majority of operating systems that people are using on their cell phones is either iOS or Android, and both those app stores are heavily controlled by Apple and by Google, which means they can and could potentially be co-opted by government, right? Does that worry you at all? Is
Or
this
they,
going to
or
be?
they, they,
Yeah.
they could be, or they could not be. That's also a possibility. It's very important to understand that the positive outcome is also probable. The question is, how probable is it? And it's more probable if there's a billion people using Bitcoin wallets and it's absolutely normalized. When we started Azteco, when I started Azteco back in the 2014-ish, I ran a pop-up store in Goldston Street to test whether or not the proposition was understandable by the public. And during that test, block blockchain.info's wallet was removed from the Apple iTunes store, the Apple App Store, and I used to point people to uh, that app in the store to show them a very simple wallet they could use to redeem an Azteco voucher on the spot. And of course, when that went away, I didn't have a go-to wallet anymore. This is very early days, and it was very, very frustrating. But that's super unlikely to happen now, and it will be even less likely if there's billions of people all downloading these apps globally. When it's completely normal and it's an ordinary occurrence, it's not going to be seen as a problem. In the same way, Uber is available on the Android, what was it, Google Play Store, and on the Apple iTunes Store. And this is in the face of massive opposition from taxi companies in many jurisdictions. Nobody could conceive that the Uber app would be removed from either one of these stores because some taxi union wants to have their monopoly on taxis restored. So the key here is mass dissemination of wallets. Every single phone, every single operating system should come with a wallet out of the box that you can just turn on, put your seed phrase in, and get your money up and running. And when this happens, the likelihood of any of these app stores turning off a wallet or all Bitcoin wallets will be vastly reduced. The way to think about this is to think about what steps we can take to mitigate the possibility that what you just described, which would be a total disaster, what you just described from happening. And that's the way to think about it. If there is some negative possible outcome, it can be ameliorated and worked around before it ever happens if we sit down and think about it first.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Wow. I really, and I think Opti wrote this in the chat. I really appreciate Beautyon's optimism. It's definitely a fresh of, definitely fresh of breath air, whatever that expression is. Um, is that how it goes? Anyways,
Yes, a breath of fresh air. But the thing that
breath of
also,
fresh
let's
air.
think
Yeah.
about this. Uh, is what I'm saying optimistic or is it just true? Now,
It's
the
true.
sun is going to come up tomorrow. Is that me being optimistic or saying something that's just true?